Welcome to Sorry If I Spit When I Speak.
Welcome.
I am Dadio McDuke, and I'm joined by Dr. Hodgie Electric Esmoji.
Yeah.
And today we were going to talk about the wide receivers and, sorting all of that out, what it's going to look like.
Joe Burrow's probably one of the best receiving cores coming into the season, really. With lots to talk about, lots of excitement.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we had very terrible, unfortunate, sad news today. The passing of Bengals legend Ken Riley.
Yeah.
And this guy, if you don't know about him, you should look him up. He was incredible. 65.
He's in the Dadio and Hodgie Hall of Fame, even if he didn't make it to the NFL Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. That's way more elite. Very difficult to get into. He had 65 career interceptions. And he had a great season, nine interceptions in 1976, 141 return yards, which is third all time. But this is the thing about the guy. He was consistently great. He had 8 interceptions his final year at age 36, and he was first team All-Pro in his final year. This guy could have kept going, and he was clutch in the postseason. He had 3 interceptions in 7 games, and he was a quarterback at Texas A&M.
Wow.
And Paul Brown converted him to corner. You can think about at the time the kind of prejudices towards black quarterbacks, and who knows what his career would have looked like if he got that chance, obviously. But he was a smart player as a former quarterback. He took notes on receivers, and he used that to intercept quarterbacks later on.
Yeah, so, you're quite the fan, and I am too. And by the way, this goes in with the whole Kenny Anderson topic. Look at this poor man. He passed away without being in the Hall of Fame. He deserved to be in the Hall of Fame, and it's anti-Bengalism. It is.
Yeah. At least Ken Anderson got to be on the show. I wanted to bring Ken Riley on, but
Ken's going to get in soon because we're making a push. We've made a concerted effort to get him on the the Hall of Fame. And when Dadio and Hodgie say they're going to do something, they're going to do something.
We will, yeah. But we have a very special guest to talk about Ken Riley and the wide receivers. I'm talking about James Rapien,
the one and
Cincinnati's own. Sports Illustrated, which I love, by the way, great magazine.
Yes.
James is here, and
let's bring him on.
Yeah, James, thank you so much for joining us.
There he is.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys. How are you?
Good to talk to you. Good to meet you, sir. Yes,
we're very good. We're very good. James, you had tell me your impressions and your memories of. I know you're too young to watch him live, but I know you've covered him and read about him and watched this film about Ken Riley.
I don't blame you for saying it's anti-Bengal, right? He should be in the Hall of Fame. You look at his numbers, the 65 interceptions that you mentioned, 5th in NFL history. He has more interceptions than Ed Reed, right? There's no debate on whether or not Ed Reed should be a Hall of Famer. Why is there a debate here with Ken Riley? He played in the Freezer Bowl, helped the Bengals get to a Super Bowl in 1981, was a 3-time All-Pro, a 1-time first-team All-Pro in 83, his final season, like you mentioned. So the accolades are there. And the crazy part about him, 15 years playing at a high level. How many players can do that in any era? And he did it in an extremely physical era that was tough to play in. And here's the other thing, guys. He had at least 3 interceptions in 12 of his 15 years. So he was durable. He was extremely, extremely consistent. And he had all the accolades in the final numbers that you look for to get him in the Hall of Fame. I hope he gets in still, but it's a damn shame he couldn't wear that gold jacket in person.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is a shame. Yeah.
So I know it's very early. Do we know anything about the cause of this? That it's very sad, and we're all trying to cope with it.
I haven't heard. I know he was at his home, surrounded by his loved ones in Florida, but I'm not sure on the cause.
When?
Okay.
When?
Okay. Very sad.
We'll keep everybody updated on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
No, you.
Well, I was going to say, James, moving on to receivers, you wrote a very fascinating piece, about John Ross. And I know you've been a big fan of John Ross, and I have too. I'll be honest, I didn't want the Bengals to draft him.
No.
It didn't seem like a Bengals type pick, because the kind of the Ferrari type players, I didn't think we don't have the best history with managing injuries.
Well, just be straight with it, Dadio. Andy Dalton didn't have the arm to get the ball that fast downfield to a John Ross. It was a bad match.
I know James is going to like that one. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's true. Last year we saw it, even when Ross stayed healthy, that it wasn't necessarily a great match, right? And there was off-target passes, and that Ross has a lot of flaws. but Andy Dalton didn't set him up for success necessarily.
No.
And Marvin Lewis sure as hell didn't in his first couple of years. So I'm with you guys there.
Yeah. It's a real shame. I think that there is some potential in Ross, and I personally like to push back against the whole narrative that if someone's injury prone, that's necessarily such a big deal. Because if you get John Ross playing at his full potential and he plays 3/4 or even half the games, you have enough receiving talent on the team that they can make up for it. He can be an explosive factor if you save him for the playoffs and you do other things with him. You have to be strategic with a player like that, like they were with Eifert. Tyler Eifert.
Yep, you do. And I think that's kind of what they're planning on.
Yeah.
They drafted T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is going to get significant snaps this year.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, A.J. Greene comes back, Tyler Boyd, Auden Tate. So, and Ross complements them well. I think that they're going to try to maximize his efficiency, right? He doesn't need 12 targets to make an impact. He can make a game-changing play with 3 targets and 2 handoffs.
Exactly.
So I think they're going to try to put him in a position to succeed this year for sure.
I mean, I just want to say one thing. Hodgie, you said, he could still develop into an impact player. I mean, this guy, John Ross, last year, the first 2 games, he was like the top receiver in fantasy, just to be clear. I mean, this guy was on fire. We know his potential, and it is as high as anybody's potential, to be honest with you.
I think he's a lot like a Deshaun Jackson, right? Who is one of his mentors and has dealt with plenty of injuries. Now, has Ross dealt with more injuries early in his career than Deshaun did? Yes. But does he have the skill set and the physical tools and everything necessary to succeed at the NFL level? Absolutely. I think there's a reason TJ Houshmandzadeh has worked out with him as much as he has, because he believes in him. So if he can stay healthy this year, I think with that, Zach Taylor's offensive system, Joe Burrow, not Andy Dalton, I think Ross could have a big year and show Bengals fans why he was picked where he was.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the injuries, right? Mm-hmm. My hope is sometimes players, they just they have the injuries early on, and then they get to a point where the injuries just stop. And that can be from their preparation. It can be from, getting stronger. And you talked about some of the things Ross is doing. Like he has the masseuse, he has the trainer, he's the Olympic trainer, there's a lot of people training him. I think back to the speed guys that had very long careers, because the thing about speed is you can stay an elite athlete for very long. I think of Joey Galloway. He had the injuries early on, the torn ACL, whatever. He was out for 2 years, and he played until 40 basically, and he was pretty good. Or Daryl Greene. These type of guys.
Well, I mean, when you look, go ahead, please, James.
You're right. You're right. I mean and that's the thing is I think John knows he's got to take certain steps and do certain things and see multiple doctors and invest money into his body to try to stay healthy. Last year, the injury against Pittsburgh, he'll say it's a freak injury, right? This wasn't an ACL or a knee or a hamstring. This was he just landed awkwardly and right on that shoulder, and it just broke the in an awful way, right? So I don't think that was necessarily his fault, but he needs to make sure he's as finely tuned as possible to avoid any hamstrings, any knees, and any kind of pulls or things like that. He's had a groin injury. All those things, all those soft tissue things, he needs to avoid them, because you guys compared him to a Ferrari, and it's true. I mean, you don't want a Ferrari to have a flat tire or have anything wrong with it, because if it does, it ain't hitting 100 miles an hour, and that's what he can do.
Right, and I can tell you as someone who has had a Ferrari back in the 80s, I had a Ferrari. You drive that thing over a bump, and you got to take it to the mechanic. And that's the thing about John Ross is, let's be blunt. There are 2 types of bodies. There's a sprinter's body and there is an NFL body. And I think the concern with John Ross is that the body, John Ross's very body, is a sprinter's, runner's body. It's a small. Like if you just put him side by side with someone like T. Higgins and you look at just the difference in the physique, they look different. They look very different body types here. And I think that's the concern with John Ross getting hurt. And I do think he's always going to be accident prone because of that. His strength is his weakness. The speed is related. The body type is related to why he's hurt.
I think a lot of fans would agree with you. I don't know if I can say that yet, right?
Okay,
we need to see. Well, we need to see if that's a continuation, because what if he does reinvent himself here and have 800 yards this year, and then if the Bengals let him go, he signs elsewhere and stays healthy and he becomes the next Deshaun Jackson. Like he has that skill set.
Maybe.
And so
Now,
it's just a matter of staying healthy.
Well,
and
I
if
say
I-
James. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if I were on the Bengals staff and I've applied every year and it's still not there, the Bengals coaching staff, that's okay. You don't need me. I don't need you. That's fine. But if I were there, I would have some suggestions. One, there's got to be, I don't know if they're doing enough weight training. Maybe they are. Get bigger, get bulkier. Number two, turmeric. Is he taking turmeric? Is he using natural supplements? Ginseng. Ginseng creates stamina. It gets a person's muscles going. Is he using, because these are not considered doping. You can use turmeric and ginseng and they will not be picked up on any tests. You got to change the diet. You got to get bigger.
Well, he is bigger. I mean, he's, for those who don't know, like John Ross is thicker than Tyler Boyd. I mean, from a muscle standpoint. Wow. Yeah. I mean,
you didn't imagine that.
But it's different because, John is closer to Gio than people realize from an arm standpoint, but in a muscle standpoint. So yeah, but he's also dealt with injuries. And so if you call him injury prone, he'll admit it. It's kind of true. So I don't think it's necessarily a muscle thing. Yeah, the vitamins and the supplements thing that's a good point. And I'm not sure. I didn't ask him about specific supplements.
Yeah.
But I do wonder what he's taking and what the Olympic trainer and the doctor and the masseuse that he's seeing regularly every week, what they're doing to make sure he stays healthy and he's ready to go.
Well, thank you for saying that, James. I'm very into supplements. And I tell you, turmeric is an anti-inflammatory and it creates greater capacity for the muscles to absorb antioxidants. But Dadio, why don't you go ahead and you were going to say something?
I should probably take that.
You should
I'm starting to get a little more sore, man.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's the one talking the talk, Hodgie over here. But I mean, James, you look in much better shape,
than me.
Than Hodgie, yeah.
Well,
he's James, the doctor. I'm not a doctor.
We have no idea. We have no idea what he's a doctor of. Just for the record,
it's an honorary PhD for your
honorary. Yeah. So here's the thing, James. We talked about a quarterback not being Andy Dalton, but Joe Burrow specifically is very suited for a guy like John Ross, in my opinion, because Joe Burrow is very smart. He leads receivers with the ball. He can improvise. He can buy time. And John Ross is the guy, when you buy time, he's going to make the big plays. And we saw a few times last year when Andy Dalton and John Ross were not on the same page, is because John Ross was running free, maybe not the designed play, and Andy Dalton just doesn't have that ability. But Joe Burrow has that more than even other good QBs, most good QBs. There aren't that many that have that. Yeah, go ahead, James, please.
It's his ability to go off script.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's something Joe Burrow can do that Andy Dalton flashed a little bit in 2018 during the early part of the year, but then it fell apart, right? I mean, he hasn't consistently done that throughout his career. And I'm with you. I think it's a good matchup, good combo. And here's the other reason I like Burrow with Ross. It isn't just the physical tools. The other side of Ross isn't just the injuries. It's the confidence. Right. And that's the thing. Honestly, it might even be more important. And when you look at Joe Burrow and what he is and just talking with him, virtually, you can tell this dude is confident and that he believes he's going to have success and he's going to be able to command a room. And he's already worked out with John. They worked out before the draft in California. And John was like, everyone's going to be able to follow him. He's definitely a leader. And I think that, and this is something John agreed with, Burrow's confidence will be contagious and rub off on John. Not that John isn't confident right now, but I think when you have that quarterback, and this isn't a knock on Andy, but it's just the reality. We heard the pregame.
You're allowed to knock on Andy.
That. But it's just he doesn't have that charisma or in that the it factor, right? Yeah. That some of these quarterbacks have, that Brady has, right? Yeah. That Burrow, that Russell Wilson, that some of these quarterbacks
the swagger.
Have. Yeah. To a degree, there's the swagger, the confidence, and all right, let's go kick their ass, right? And so that's something that Burrow brings, and I think that's going to get the most out of John too, because that's something TJ Hushmanzada has, and he's trying to get that and really cement that into John, because they know that the physical traits are there with Ross, and it's just a matter of him being confident and staying healthy.
Nice. Absolutely, but so my next question is, if John has that breakout year, in other words, if he continues where he picked up early last season, and he has, let's say 1,200 yards, 10 to 15 touchdowns, does he want to stay in Cincinnati? Is there a bitter taste in his mouth from the way things went down or not? Because I don't know how much he blamed the situation and how much he just thinks it's his own personal misfortune. You know what I mean?
I don't think he blames Cincinnati. And honestly, I know a lot of people, including myself, talk about Marvin Lewis, but I haven't heard John say a bad word about Marvin Lewis, even though I think Lewis put Ross in a difficult position and really hurt his confidence early on.
Yeah.
But he also sheltered him when he was going through a lot of mental things his first year, right?
Sure, but I think Lewis was a part of that as well, right? If you fumble, if your ninth overall pick fumbles, like if Joe Burrow's first career throw is an interception, he's going to be out there the very next series. Ross didn't get in after his fumble against the Texans, and whether or not that matters, we could go back and forth on, but I do think Lewis is to blame there some. So, no, I don't think Ross has ill will towards Cincinnati or the Bengals, and I think he would be willing to sign there long term, but he's got to stay healthy, and he knows it's really on him. Whatever happens next is on him. Staying healthy, performing, and being consistent, 3 things he's focused on.
Well, does he have ill will towards our channel? Do you know that? Because I tried to get him on the show. We were pretty close. But maybe, I don't know, because we had a very short highlight reel of his rookie season, and I think maybe that rubbed him the wrong way.
Right. And then there was the John Ross enema video that we made, the coffee enema video that we made. Yeah, that's
right. But just to be clear, we love John Ross.
It was just a recommendation. I was recommending coffee enemas for reducing stress, and some people take that the wrong way, but it's a very effective. I have one twice a week.
But yeah, if you,
I'm not gonna I don't appreciate this John Ross slander, guys.
No,
I'm on Team Ross.
No, I love John Ross. I'm trying.
Yeah, we love it.
Let me explain. Let me say, James, I was against the Bengals drafting him because they're the Bengals, but because I thought it wouldn't work out. And I was right. It was Andy Dalton and Marvin Lewis, not game planning for him. It wasn't going to work out, but now things are different. But I saw the potential, I loved what I saw, and And after we got him, I was like, okay, I really hope we can figure out a way to make it. I love the idea of a John Ross. He can change an offense. The way Randy Moss completely changed the Vikings. They had 2 great receivers, but when you have that kind of home run hitter, it's like defenses have to account for it every play. I love the idea of Ross, and I really hope it works out.
But Ross is great, but we've seen some comments here and some other things here. I mean, come on. This team is stacked when it comes to receivers. I mean, like everywhere you turn now, we have great receivers. I think Ross is among them. Ross is elite. I think he has the potential to be elite. I think he was worth being a number 1 draft pick. But then look at the other guys. AJ Greene coming back. You got your Boyd. And I will say you've got your Higgins. And T. Higgins, that man should have been a first-round draft pick. That man is amazing. You go back and watch the highlights of T. Higgins receptions. This team is so stacked. It's amazing. I'm so excited about our receiving core. And just generally, James, what do you think about just generally upcoming the receiving core and the Bengals? Is it as exciting to you as it is to me?
Absolutely. I think they could be one of the best cores in the league. I mean, if you're Joe Burrow, what more could you ask for from a skill position standpoint? You have AJ Greene, a 7-time Pro Bowler, who by all accounts, still a freak, right? He was working out towards the end of last season, and the Bengals looked at him and said, hey, he looks like the same guy, even though he missed all of last season with injuries. And then Tyler Boyd, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And I get it. I said Ross has more muscle than Boyd. Part of that is Boyd's 6'1", longer, has a different build. But a perfect slot receiver who complements all of these guys. I like T. Higgins in Auden Tate, too. I think Auden Tate is really underrated. He's not super fast.
No,
but all 3 of us could be guarding him, and he'd somehow catch the ball. He's got a way about that. So they're stacked at wide receiver, no doubt.
Well, James, let's just to go back a little bit. Let's go one by one. So AJ Greene, okay. I personally think he is still a top 3 receiver.
Yes.
Until I see otherwise, because the last time we saw him play, he was producing like a top 3 receiver. And I want to say the best receiver, but I know people because if you take into account the quarterback play, like I know Julio looks like the most talented receiver. But he has an MVP. And not only forget the MVP, because Dalton had 1 good season. But Matt Ryan has been consistently top 10, top 15 quarterback.
Better than Andy.
Much better than Andy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, AJ Greene has been.
And I would add to that our conspiracy theory that AJ Greene might not have really been all that hurt last year. If this was really a throwaway year, and AJ Greene knows that, who knows when he was actually better and ready to play? Because he's not going to play and hurt that valuable body, those valuable talents, put them on the line for a throwaway season. No way. I wouldn't. And I think AJ Greene's going to be just great this coming year. I think it's going to be amazing. You got your Greene, you got your Ross. Yeah.
No, I mean, so I'm saying, yeah, I agree. I think Greene could have come back last year.
I do too.
You know,
I think towards the end of last year there was a real chance if they had been 10-2, right, where Greene would have found his way back on the field.
Absolutely.
But when you're destined for the number one pick anyway, you shut it down, and that's what he did. And
and
it
his
was
contract
wise.
situation, and his contract situation.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is that's still hanging in the balance here. The Bengals want to get a long-term deal done, but they want to see him out on the field. He wants a long-term deal done, but he doesn't want to get injured. So it's going to be tough to see. But they have until July 15th to get an extension done.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't know what they mean by long-term. If they mean more than 3 years, but if it's 3 years, you pay the man. I mean, I don't want to hear any excuse. I don't care. You don't have to see anything.
Well, and here's the question. Here's the question. Right now, Burrow has a rookie contract, so he's a steal. Okay, so when is it that they're going to have to start paying the big bucks to Burrow? Because that's going to happen eventually, right?
Year five. Assuming he plays well, they'll pick up his 5th-year option after his 3rd season. They'll make a decision on that, and then year 5 is when his cap number will jump up. And hopefully by then they've done their winning. But it's really a 4-year window. So 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, where you could take advantage of that rookie quarterback.
So in that case, I think there's no reason not to pay AJ Greene the big bucks, and I bet they will right before July 15th.
I would pay him for 3 years. So I would rip up the franchise tag. I'm with you guys. I think 3 years makes sense.
Yes.
And I wrote about this, and Bengals fans were like, how much do you want to give him? But it's really the reality. He's going to command – I bet he's asking for $20 million per season. The Bengals could probably get him at around $18 million per year. And when you look at the cap percentage – not the actual money, but the cap percentage, assuming the cap stays the same. There's a lot of uncertainty with the coronavirus. It's really close, that 18 to 20.
Did we lose you, James?
Yeah, James.
I think his screen froze. I will say I didn't know they were only 2 million apart, the Bengals and Ross. That's like 20 Ferraris. That's not too much. That's not a big deal.
That's less than. It's actually less than 20 Ferraris.
Yeah, maybe 17, 16 Ferraris.
Yeah, maybe. But what I was going to say is, and I hope. Oh, is James back?
Is James back?
James, are you back?
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, James.
I didn't realize you lost me.
No, yeah, okay.
You froze and then we lost you, but that's okay. You're back, and that's what matters. Why don't you pick up?
It's all this pressure. It's all this pressure of you guys interviewing me.
Yeah, it is kind of the biggest show right now. I mean, we're getting Bengals left and right.
So pick up where you left off, James. You were talking about this upcoming. Did he freeze again?
James, can you please stop freezing? It's really bad for ratings. Hold on.
I think James froze.
Yeah.
So, Dadio, as we get James back, and I really do hope he does come back soon. Let me just ask you something.
Sure.
Yeah. What happened with Mixon? Because I think I missed the boat on that. Did they finally work it out, iron out the deal with Mixon?
Not yet. Okay. No.
They really need to do that because we keep talking about receivers, but you need Mixon. You do.
I don't know if he's. Oh, here James is back. Here we go. And James,
you froze again.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I do video chats all the time.
Is it?
Anyways,
sounds like
I'm back.
Your internet is stressed out because of the big lights.
Yeah, but James, tell us. You were talking about the potential AJ Greene deal. That's where you were talking, and you got froze and cut out. Continue what you were saying, please.
So I think that it'll be somewhere in the 3-year range. They could rip up this franchise tag in anywhere between $18 to $20 million. And that number sounds scary.
It does.
But assuming that the cap space or the cap number is what it's expected to be across the league, and the coronavirus could impact this, but that would be close to the same percentage, around 10% of what it was when they extended him in 2015, because it's really the percentage of the cap, not necessarily the dollar amount. So $18 million in 2020 is really the equivalent for a top receiver is the equivalent of $15 million when they extended him in 2015. Yeah. So I think that's where fair. They'll land is in that 18 to 20 million range.
Well,
3 years makes sense. I would not go 4. And that's the danger in playing this year out on the franchise tag is he's going to want at least 3 years if he plays well this year. And now you're paying him 18 to 20 million at age 35. I think 34 is kind of the cutoff date for me, just from an age standpoint.
And considering, as we said, that we're stacked.
Well,
I mean, yes.
the other thing is he's gotten paid. Like John Sheeran points out, he be on, our analyst John Sheeran is on our show. He talks about the third contract. I mean, it's going to be his second big contract, and so even if a player is very valuable, it's not just the age. It's like, hey, we paid you once. It's kind of like it's kind of understood. But James, I want to mention one thing about the value of AJ Greene. People don't understand. They're like, oh, we have Joe Burrow. Oh, we have other good receivers. Look, and Tyler Boyd is a very good receiver, by the way. But if you look at if you look at recent quarterback play, the guys who've had easy transitions into the NFL, I'm talking about Matt Ryan, he had, Roddy White. Andrew Luck had Reggie Wayne. Peyton Manning had Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go back, you could say, Steve Young had Jerry Rice. I mean, all these guys, they usually have that one veteran guy. He doesn't have to be a superstar. Let's say Roddy White wasn't necessarily the best, but they have that blanket. They have that go-to guy. Right. And it really helps with their confidence and getting adjusted to the game. And that is what I think people are they don't think receivers are that important. Say, how many top paid receivers have won Super Bowls? Who cares? We're talking about getting Joe Burrow acclimated to the NFL right now. Does that make sense?
It does. And the other thing, that Super Bowl argument is so hollow. Because how many elite quarterbacks are wish they would have Julio Jones. And Tom Brady would win a hell of a lot of games with Julio Jones or AJ Green or any of these guys.
And look how close. Look at what Julio Jones and Randy Moss did to get almost the championship.
Well, and maybe I'm pointing out the obvious here, but the obvious needs to be pointed out, which is that AJ Green elevates the play of the other receivers because he's deferring a lot of the smoke and a lot of the attention away. So when AJ Green is out there, everybody's playing better. Yeah. Everybody's catching better. He is a big factor. And I will tell you one last thing. Bill Belichick, I've said this before, Bill Belichick has always wanted to take AJ Green from us. Let's not give him that chance.
And Joe Mixon, by the way.
Yeah, he tried to do it. Yeah, he will do it. He tried to
do it. Yeah.
I mean, they found the cap room for Antonio Brown. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you ever seen that movie, James, Indecent Proposal, where Robert Redford takes Demi Moore out on the boat ride and then finally just keeps her. And she's married to Woody Harrelson. That's what Bill Belichick was trying to do with AJ Green. He was trying to. Is
that true, James? Is that true? Can you confirm that?
I will confirm that. And here's the thing: is I wouldn't blame Bill because you look at what AJ Green's done for the Bengals. He's their MVP. It hasn't been Andy Dalton.
Exactly.
How many non-quarterbacks are the MVP of their winning team? He made life on Andy so much easier. The reason they didn't win against Houston in 2012 in the playoffs. We talk about the playoff streak. Well, he overshot him, and they didn't target him in the first half because Jay Gruden's glorious game plan was targeting Jermaine Gresham, not AJ Green. Right? So there's so many ways he makes your team better. And I think even at 32, and he's turning 32 next month, I think AJ Green is still an elite player.
I mean, there's really happy birthday.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think absolutely. I mean, he looks young. His age says 32, but he came in the league when he's 23. He takes good care of his body. Yeah. But James, you think of AJ Green's career, and there's two things. You look at all of his career highlights, and he has to come back for the ball, basically. He's always underthrown.
Yeah.
And you look, he's always he's beasting guys. He's catching over like three guys, like Calvin Johnson style. He's not getting schemed open. That's the other thing. So you look at the coaching and you look at the quarterback play, and he's never had the chance to thrive just by being talented and getting open. He's always had to do more than the other great receivers. That's my take on it.
I think that they're going to scheme him open more now as he gets older, right? If you sign him to a 3-year extension like we talked about, they're going to move him around. Even if they don't sign him to that extension, they're going to move him around. You'll see him in the slot more. You'll see him doing different things because you don't want him to take the beating, right? And to take the shoulder the load that he's had to in the past. So this way, you have T. Higgins, you have Auden Tate, you have these guys who can play outside. John Ross can play outside. And so move him inside at times to take less pressure off of him. And to your guys' point, scheme him open, make life easier on a really talented player that, again, with Joe Burrow, who's to say that he can't have a career season this year? His best season ever with a guy like Joe Burrow.
Mahomes threw 50 his first full season, 50 touchdowns.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, and we could have had him. So now let's talk here about the other guys.
Yeah,
So
that's what. Yeah, really, because we're over time.
We're over time.
Yeah.
You want to
So-
just skip to T. Higgins?
Well, I just want to say something that James said that I think about a lot, which is that the Bengals receivers complement each other.
They do.
Okay, you have your clear number one receiver, AJ Greene. You have your slot receiver, and by the way, it's not just the Tyler Boyd is good in the slot. It's not just that. It is that he has the toughness. He's a competitor. He's got that. I hate to say it, that Pittsburgh kind of grittiness.
Yeah.
I remember the big games, not just that Baltimore one, against the Steelers. He's made big plays in the big moments. You remember? Or against the Dolphins, he dragged his leg to the line of scrimmage. This guy is a baller. He loves the game. He will fight for wins. And that's our Tyler Boyd. Then you have our Ferrari. You have our guy that once he gets going, the whole defense has to focus on John Ross. Then you have our hands guy, Auden Tate. You can throw anything in his direction, and he will catch it. Then you have the up-and-coming balanced receiver, kind of like a less explosive, less athletic AJ Greene and T. Higgins, right? I mean, it's incredible how they complement each other. I mean, Joe Burrow can go to guys in so many different styles and find success. That's what I take away.
It's a perfect fit in that there are so many different ways you can utilize these guys. And I think you're going to see a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets where they're out there and they're interchangeable and they're using them in different ways. And you're right. I mean, you're going to really have to pick your poison. If these guys can stay healthy, and I think that's the biggest concern, you're going to have to pick your poison. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of wide open John Ross streaking down the field and a lot of Tyler Boyd open across the middle and over the middle. He had 90 receptions last year, but I think Boyd could have another huge year with Burrow.
And I hate to be the pessimist of the group. I agree with all of what you guys are saying, but we might need another show to talk about other issues such as offensive line and what's going to happen with the Mixon situation. But I agree.
Well,
everything else aside,
Well, let's talk about, I mean, before we get to, those are different positions.
No, not today. Not today. I know.
Yeah, but no, I just want to say one thing we could talk about is tight ends, which that is still a question mark. You know, we don't have that Eifert anymore. We don't have that.
No, but I think they're okay. Tight end situation last year wasn't bad.
Is that true? Are we okay, James?
You certainly hope they're okay, right? I like CJ Uzomah. I think he's a pretty good player. And what do they have behind him? Right, that's kind of the key here. But that said, last year Tyler Eifert was more of a spot duty anyway, right? They were trying to protect him and keep him healthy as is. So it's going to be interesting to see the tight end position and if any of the young guys, the second round pick from last year, if he develops. But yeah, I think CJ Uzomah's solid, not great, but he's solid.
And may I finally talk about T. Higgins, Dadio? May I?
I think you've talked about them, but yes, please. Again,
no, I have to say more. I think that this was one of the great steals of the draft. Now, everybody knew that we were going to get Burrow, and we needed to get Burrow. That was the easy pick. But a lot of the reason why these teams were concerned with T. Higgins was because he ran a 4.54 40-yard dash and a 1.66 10-yard split. And it was the 10-yard split that really got people. But let me just say, this guy, he's the best wide receiver in Clemson history for a reason. He's amazing, and he didn't put forth his effort in the pro day performance. And there's a reason for that, because there's a certain kind of player, and I see T. Higgins as that. They need the reality of the game before they do well. This is the kind of player who's not going to do great in practice or preseason, but when you get down to the wire, they perform. And that's how I see T. Higgins. I see T. Higgins as the real deal. Don't forget, draft doesn't always mean anything. You got your Marvin Jones. He was drafted in the 5th round. People didn't see the potential. I see the potential in T. Higgins. I do.
Well, it's eerily familiar. He's wearing 85, and everyone looks at 9 to 85. But Chad Johnson had first-round tape. Chad Johnson had first-round separation, skill set, all of those things.
Exactly.
But he ran a 4.5. I think it was 4.57 at the NFL Combine, 40-yard dash. And I heard a story where after he ran that, he burst into tears because he knew he was going to slide. And he fell to the Bengals 36th overall, and the rest was history. As far as T. Higgins goes, he's only 21. And so he hasn't reached his athletic peak yet. He could still get faster. Obviously, he could still get stronger. But I like a lot about his game. He's great after the catch. That's an underrated part of his game. People think they see him and they say, oh, he's good at jump balls and things like that. And he is. but he's also great at a 5-yard slant and turning it into a 35-yard play and breaking tackles.
Yes.
So, I like Higgins' game a lot. And the good news is he doesn't have to be the guy right away, right? It's an uncertain offseason with no one in person. It's virtual offseason. So instead of relying on him right away, you have guys ahead of him that could come in and produce. And that doesn't mean Higgins won't be a part of the game plan, but he doesn't have to be the guy as a rookie. And by the way, before I toss back to you guys, it's Drew Sample. I forgot his name because he didn't play last year.
Yeah.
Drew Sample. We'll see what he does at tight end.
We'll see what he does. Yeah. But
when I look at T. Higgins, I see a true athlete. The man is when you watch him in the crowd and he's getting the ball, he fights for the ball. He has a presence that you don't see a lot with wide receivers. And I have a lot of hope for this guy. I'm so happy we got him. I'm really pumped about the Higgins-Burrow combination among the other combinations.
But we don't need him, just to be clear, we don't need him to be an AJ Greene. When you have a quarterback, like Joe Burrow, I mean, look at Russell Wilson. You know, he's never had that kind of elite, because you have a quarterback that is so good at getting guys open. You can have a Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins be in the 800 to 1,200 yard range, and still win a lot of games.
Right.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's the benefit now, is because the Bengals have that franchise receiver in AJ Greene, and they hopefully for the first time, if you want to give Carson credit, in 05 he was certainly that guy. They have a quarterback that can elevate the talent around him, which is something Andy just never could do. So at least they feel that way. So if that's the case, you're right. He's going to get the most out of T. Higgins, the most out of John Ross. You mentioned Joe Mixon, the most out of him. Hell, I mentioned Drew Sample. Drew Sample's now suddenly in a great situation because he's going to be playing with an elite passer. So if Joe Burrow reaches his full potential, the Bengals should be in a pretty good spot as far as the passing game is concerned and their weapons are concerned.
That's great.
But thank you, James, for joining us.
Yeah,
James, I'm sure you all know, he is Sports Illustrated, covers the Bengals. He also has the #1 podcast about the Bengals, Locked On Bengals.
Wow.
It's even bigger than our podcast.
Can you believe that?
I don't know. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
That's all Jake Lisco. I'm just tagging along for the ride.
If you ever need a theme song, we do music. That's how Dadio and I became famous. Yeah. Let us know.
Yeah.
We are famous. I mean, I was so nervous that my internet froze twice.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. But James, I apologize. We interrupt each other, but the show is called Sorry If I Split When I Speak, and we love the hot cakes.
We just interrupt.
We're not the analytics type.
Yeah, it's just what we do.
We do the hot cakes. We like to say the hot and
not hot cakes. It's hot takes.
Yeah, no, like hot, delicious hot cakes. We have this.
It's not hot cakes. It's hot takes. You got it wrong.
I like hot cakes.
See,
and hot takes.
There's no problem with the hot, right? I mean, that's what gets you the money. That's what gets the ratings. And so that's what we do here. Yeah.
You guys like Geta on the side of your hot cakes?
Oh, well, I'm a vegan.
Yeah.
So I don't eat meat.
His Geta is pretty gross. You don't want to know what it's.
Geta's pretty good. Come on.
No, I'm saying his vegan Geta.
Vegan Geta.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
what is that? Oatmeal? What is that? Just oats? Was that?
It's a collection of roots that I get from my garden, and I put them together with some garlic and mustard powder, actually, to get the Geta flavoring. Yeah, and it's kind of oaty nutty kind of thing going on. It's very healthy, gluten free. Really, everybody should be going gluten and dairy free because of inflammation issues, especially AJ Greene. If he wants to stay good long term, I really recommend
He's made it this far. I mean, Hodgie, I don't know what your 40-yard time would be.
Well, maybe he already is dairy free.
Maybe.
Yeah, because you avoid inflammation.
Maybe. Try adding a little dandelion to your Geta.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Dandelion, it'll help. A little more flavor.
Yeah.
Well, James is clearly a Cincinnati guy. He's together. I'm sure he loves the Grater's ice cream and the four-way chili and the La Rosa's pizza and all that stuff. So that's what we love about James.
I'm a three-way guy. I don't do the four-way.
Oh, okay.
Three-way.
Okay, so a little more conservative with the.
That means no onions, I believe.
No onion, no bean, but I do top it off with some hot sauce. So.
Well, that's because you have to work. You can't have the breath and all that. I know how that is. Yeah. Well, it was a real pleasure.
It really was.
Dr. James, to have you on the show and to consult with you and get your input on this exciting upcoming Bengals season.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm hungry now, so I'm going to go make a three-way with a side of Geta. I appreciate it.
There you go, man. Stay strong. Think about going dairy free and meat free, but not for everybody.
Yeah,
Right
thank
away,
you.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
never
you.
going to happen.
Yeah,
You
I
never
like
know.
James' style. He's yeah. That is all we have for this show. We will see you next time. So long, sweetie. Bye.